Madly off in all directions, that might be the best way to characterize the first 5 days of the campaign. You've got the Liberal bus crashing into the Liberal plane, the SNC story coming roaring back to life with allegations that the government refused to lift privilege so the RCMP can get more answers. The Conservatives are desperate to stop talking about the abortion question, and then Andrew Scheer campaigns with a candidate who's a vocal anti-abortion activist. Jagmeet Singh appears to be losing candidates faster than he can nominate them, with two more dropping out for allegations of domestic abuse and threatening to punch a journalist. And the Greens have a separatist candidate in Quebec, and they lost another for hate speech allegations. But amidst all that, there are actually some interesting policy ideas. The Liberals have announced an expansion of the first-time homebuyers benefit. The Conservatives have announced more tax credits for maternity and paternity leave and transit. And the NDP are pushing to massively expand health care coverage. Have the first few days of the campaign been a disaster, or are there any great ideas peeking through the gloom? Let's bring in the Scrum to find out. Tanya McCharles is the senior reporter for the Toronto Star, just off the campaign trail with Justin Trudeau. Bob Fife is the Globe and Mail's Ottawa bureau chief. Craig Oliver is CTV's chief political commentator. Our special guest for this round is the former communications director for Jean Chretien, now the vice chairman at Hill & Knowlton, Peter Donolo. Well, welcome to the first week. Great to have everyone here. Tanya, let me just start with you because you literally just got off. This week you were following Trudeau, you were with him. Bob's story on the SNC-Lavalin obviously created a big stir. Was that having an impact on the trail for Justin Trudeau, or were other issues?
It wasn't anything that any of the people we encountered out on the street, in Quebec, out west, were bringing up with us when you talked to them about what their issues were. But clearly, from day one, it set a problem for Trudeau to address, which I think arguably he still hasn't quite addressed, claiming that he's given permission for this thing to be fully aired. And that's obviously, everybody's written, it's not the case. So in that respect, it didn't seem to be playing that way. What I think my main impression from arriving after, I don't know, 3 or 4 provinces last night was that there is no set narrative driving this campaign yet.
Right.
People and organizers are telling us this, and you get it from people that you talk to. People are still trying to figure out where's this thing going, why are we doing this right now, what's the main issue?
Yeah, I just don't think that SNC-Lavalin, all of the trust issues that legitimately raises about Trudeau and ethics, I just don't think that the Conservatives are going to win with that alone. I think they've got to get out there with a better vision of the country than Trudeau's offering, and that's being made more difficult for them by a number of reasons, particularly the fact that Trudeau has behind him a very strong economy, the best job figures in generations, and a war room which is knocking the heck out of the Conservatives and losing them candidates.
Yeah, Bob, where are you? I mean, obviously the SNC story came back, and it does play into the big narrative about Trudeau, which is trust, which is, I think, one of the key moments in this campaign so far. What's your view on how this is playing out?
Well, first of all, it's trust and truth. When we first broke the SNC-Lavalin story back in February, that there was an effort by the Prime Minister's office to pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould, the Justice Minister, to grant, basically give SNC-Lavalin a break in the courts. Mr. Trudeau said those allegations in the Globe and Mail were false. Now that we know that the RCMP is knocking on the Prime Minister's office door to get cabinet documents and access to witnesses who are bound by cabinet confidentiality, he says, oh, that's not my responsibility. That's the clerk of the Privy Council's responsibility. He made that decision, which is not true. The clerk of the Privy Council is a custodian of cabinet secrets, but it is the Prime Minister and cabinet which can release those documents and witnesses. So the question is, what is the Prime Minister hiding? Now, I agree with Craig's assessment. I'm not sure that the SNC-Lavalin may have already been baked into the electorate's consciousness, and I think the Conservatives are being outflanked and outmaneuvered by a very smart war room by the Liberal Party, and Mr. Scheer has not been able to break through with his affordability campaign, which I think has some appeal, but he hasn't been able to put any meat on it to hit people.
Peter Donolo, you've been in war rooms, you understand this. How do you assess the first week?
I think the war room. I think the Liberal war room won the first week. If anyone won the first week of the campaign, I agree with what my friend said about the SNC-Lavalin thing sort of being baked in. Although the PM is going to be under a lot of pressure and stress at the first debate he enters on this. Because remember, when you're in a scrum or a press conference during a campaign, questions come from all sorts of areas. In a debate, he's going to be under sustained pummeling from this, and the answers he's given so far are going to be difficult. But you know, getting back to the war room, I mean, these candidates, the war room have kind of the brain farts that these all these crazy candidates that the Liberal war room has found. I mean, the actual parties are running for should have found these months ago and disqualified these guys. I don't understand how they let them run.
There was a conservative strategist years ago, Tom Flanagan, who everybody might remember from the Stephen Harper days, who coined the term bozo eruptions. And you know, those were the things that were said in the middle of the campaign. Now with social media, they can be tracked. But look, I just want to say that the other piece of what Peter's saying about the sustained questioning Trudeau will face at a debate. So far, he's run a very safe, cautious campaign. He's taken only 15 minutes of questions each day once. So that will be something also to watch. Is he bubbled? Is he contained? Frankly, not in Quebec. Right. He did a tear through Quebec where he faced tough questions on secularism and environment and stuff, and he was taking all comers.
Let me bring Peter back. Bill 21, which is the secularism bill, which all federal politicians seem to oppose, but they do it by sneezing into their napkin so you can't hear what they say. Does this come back and hurt them?
Listen, this issue was sort of one of Justin Trudeau's breakaway issues in the last election when Harper tried, the snitch line and all that kind of nonsense. And he stood out because he looked like he was speaking from the heart and of values. I think absolutely they're all walking on eggshells right now, including the PM to a certain extent, and I don't think it reflects well on any of them.
Look, I think it's a cop-out by all the leaders, and it's because Quebec is so important to this election campaign. 78 seats. They're all fighting for a segment of those seats. And nobody wants to say that this is wrong, that this is an infringement on basic human rights and religious freedoms guaranteed in the Charter of Rights. But if you can almost be sure if that had happened in Ontario or Alberta, they'd be all out there saying we're going to intervene on this. But because it's Quebec, they're walking on eggshells.
And Trudeau has fallen back on Mackenzie King as his strategist in this regard by saying intervention if necessary. I'll intervene, but I won't necessarily intervene. The fact is, he knows, everybody knows he's going to have to. Because this is a repudiation, C-21, or not C-21, Bill 21, of everything Pierre Trudeau ever stood for.
He's fallen back on a lawyerly explanation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to butt my nose into Quebec's affairs yet, maybe at the Supreme Court of Canada, but that's a very legalistic sort of interpretation, and I think people are looking for political leadership on the question.
All right, and lastly,
I also think it's
go ahead.
I think it goes against his brand as well. His brand is very much, I'm going to speak right or wrong. I'm a 21st century kind of guy. Diversity is our strength, all this kind of stuff. So I think it's clearly a difficult position. On the other hand, Scheer isn't even pretending to be a hypocrite on this one. He's basically kind of playing footsie with it under the table, I think, and he's got a very transparent play for Quebec nationalist votes.
All right, I got to leave it there, but we'll talk more about Andrew Scheer and Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May. There's lots going on. Peter Donolo, who's watched a lot of campaigns. Great to have you here.